Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Muhammad Alif Irfan bin Abdul Rahim, and today I will be presenting the introduction to decolonization. Okay, decolonization in Malaysian context can be seen from this country independence from British, which was completed in 1963 with the inclusion of Singapore and the Borneo territories of Sabah and Sarawak into the new Malaysian Federation, along with the Malaya itself independence since 1957. The process of decolonization not just needs to be negotiated between Malaysia and its former colonizer, but also needs to be negotiated between the major ethnic group of the new state. So, the questions are: what is decolonization and what are its impact? Linguistically, the terms decolonization can be defined as a process in which a colony controlled by another country becomes independent physically, economically, culturally, and intellectually. According to Kennedy, in 2016, decolonization is withdrawal of colonial power from colonies and the acquisition of independence politically and economically by the population of the colonies. On the other hand, in 2007, Smith stated that decolonization that is used to be defined as a process of formally handing over what is taken from the indigenous people is now can be defined as a long-term process that involves the disposal of colonial power in terms of politics, economy, bureaucracy, culture, and language. Decolonization is important in changing the indigenous society from Western-centered to local value-centered. Socio-culturally, the local communities now have their own local traditions and norms contrary to the value as well as the culture of colonizer. Besides, politically and economically, democratic political system emerged to replace the colonizer political system. Through decolonization, democracy comes with freedom of speech, freedoms of choice, human rights, and so on. I think that's enough for the introduction. And now let's move to the effects of decolonization that will be presented by Abdi Fatih.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Abdi Yusuf and we met in verse 1929763. So today we are going to discuss the effects of decolonization, cultural effects and education effects, economic effects and Syrian system effects. So let me start the cultural effect. The process of rectifying a nation's culture requires such a long process as the colony would be acquire set behaviors from its colony power. Within this new acquired elements are negative set of ethics which needed to be reviewed and eliminated so the culture of the colony will be as sure as it was before being a colony. So the next one we will discuss the educational and effects. Another important element that needs to be reviewed is the educational as usual. Colonial must make sure to instill their own value and perspective and knowledge into the colonists. Therefore, the process of decolonization is importantly required to have an educational system that goes in line with the Islamic teaching as well the local norms. So let we see economic effect. One of the main things that make colony very prone and subjugated to the colony masters is following an economical model that is based on Western view on an economy without taking Islamic point of view into consideration. Consequently, the colony will always be financially subjugated to the colonial homogeneous even after liberalization and independence. So let me see the judicial system. The colony must always set the judicial system and the legal infrastructure of the any colony based upon the Western point of view on legality, while the overlooking the customary law regulation is ruling as well. Therefore, reviewing this is a very essential to have legal system that goes hand in hand with their local norms and values. So that's all. Wassalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Izan Wais Amir bin Rafizan and I will tell you about factors that led to the decolonization. So the easiest way to understand the factors is we take it from the example. Okay, so I choose the decolonization after the World War II. The factors that led to it is that firstly, the colonized natives is not very satisfied with the colonialism by the colonies. So after they become better educated, they realize it that this system is not very it's not very satisfied for them. It's not very good for them. There are many reasons because the racist attitude shared by the colonial powers and the rapacious exploitation of natural resources, and also the denial of various attempts by the natives to get a voice in what was happening in their homeland. So this lit a fire in the colonized natives to make a to make a sound that they really dissatisfied with the colonialism. So they want to be independent. And also the process of decolonization begins now. Okay. Well, independence movements were not always guaranteed to succeed, but it will guaranteed to fail without the bravery, without the endurance of the colonized natives. So it is very commendable. Next is the effects of war. Okay, so as I say before, this is after the World War II. Uh, so after the World War II, the war reduced the capability for launching repetitive military expeditions. Okay, so the repetitive military expeditions is supposedly is used uh, to suppress the independence movements in the colonies, and also the sudden reduction of military and economic strength. Both of these reasons make it hard for them to suppress the independent movements. Next, it is also high. The to maintain empires, it has a very high cost, and also it is very difficult to maintain a very big empires. So this will make the maintaining the empires harder, and also will lead to the decolonization. Okay. So, World War Two is like a war between the Western powers and the Axis. So, America agreed to aid Western powers in opposing the Axis regimes, but they have a condition attached. Okay, led by the President Franklin Roosevelt, as shown in the photo in the slide. The condition attached is that the various colonial empires of the world would have to be dismantled after the war ends. The condition is that, yes, the various colonial empires of the world will have to be dismantled after the war ends. Roosevelt gave his Four Freedoms speech and formed the Atlantic Charter to ensure that the tone of the post-war world would be one of liberation and freedom. So, what is the Four Freedoms? Four freedoms is the freedom of speech, freedom of worship, freedom from want, and freedom from fear. Okay. Atlantic Charter has the fundamental aim to focus the peace that will follow after the World War. Okay, so after all these factors jumbled up, uh, it uh, it led to the process that will lead to the decolonization process. So from this presentation, I would like to say that uh, decolonization is proof. Decolonization is caused by the various factors that affect the mentality of the colonized nation and also the colonizer. So that is all from me. Thank you very much for listening to my presentation.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. My name is Muhammad Saiful Adli bin Jamali, metric number 2019807. I will continue this presentation with the next point, which is challenges of decolonization. There are four challenges that will be discussed in this presentation. First challenges is state building. After independence, The new states needed to establish or strengthen the institutions such as governments, laws, a military, schools, administrative system, and so on. The amount of self-rule granted prior to independence and assistance from the colonial power and international organization after independence vary greatly between colonial powers and between individual colonies, except for a few absolute monarchies. Most post-colonial states are either republics or constitutional monarchies. This new state had to devise constitutions, electoral systems, and other institutions of representative democracy. The next challenges is nation building. Nation building is the process of creating a sense of identification with and loyalty to the states. Nation building projects seeks to replace loyalty to the old colonial power and tribal or regional loyalties with loyalty to the new state. Elements of nation building include creating and promoting symbols of the states like a flag, an anthem, monument, official histories, national sport teams, codifying one or more indigenous official language, and replacing colonial place names with local ones. Nation building after independence often continues the work began by independence movement during the colonial period. The third challenge of decolonization is settled population. Decolonization is not an easy matter in colonies where a large population of settlers live, particularly if they have been there for several generations. This population in general was often repatriated or sent back, often losing considerable property. For instance, the decolonization of Algeria by France was particularly uneasy due to the large European population, which largely evacuated to France when Algeria became independent. In Zimbabwe, former Rhodesia Robert Mugabe targeted white African farmers, seizing their property by force, and many either died or immigrated. Other ethnic minorities that are also the product of colonialism may pose problems as well. A large Indian community live in Uganda as in most of East Africa as a result of Britain colonizing both India and East Africa. As many Indians had considerable wealth, Idi Amin expelled them for domestic political gain. Finally, the last challenge of decolonization is economic development. Newly independent states also had to develop independent economic institutions such as a national currency, bank, company, regulation, and so on. Many colonies were serving as resource colonies, which produced raw materials and agricultural products, and as a captive market for goods manufactured in the colonizing country. Many decolonizing many, decol- many decolonized countries created programs to promote industrialization. Some nationalized industries and infrastructure, and some engaged in land reform to redistribute land to individual farmers or create collective farms. Some decolonized countries maintain strong economic ties with the former colonial power. The CFA franc is a currency shared by 14 countries in West and Central Africa, mostly former French colonies. The CFA franc is guaranteed by the French treasury. After independence, many countries created regional economic associations to promote trade and economic development among neighboring countries, including the Association of Southeast Asian Nations (ASEAN), the Economic Community of West African States (ECOWAS), and the Gulf Cooperation Council. That's all from me. We move on to the next point, which will be presented by the next presenter. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Zainal Arifin bin Zainuddin and my matric number is 2019 and 095. Okay, first I want to talk about this advantages of decolonization and its disadvantages. Okay, first, what is a decolonization? Decolonization is a freeing country from being dependent on another country, or the other words is independence. Okay, my first point is embracing true cultures without foreign hands. Okay, the advantages of independence is to be able to have the ability to of embracing one's true culture without any foreign hand getting involved. Okay, the second is justice restoration. The justice restoration is this decolonization is about restorative justice through cultural, psychological, and economic freedom. The indigenous people can have the same position as the colonizer and the same power. Second is right to self-determination. They freely determine their political status and social and cultural development. The right to native people to self-government, such as financing for the autonomous function, freedom from force of children. They also can have legal recognition of traditional lands and territories and resources. Okay, for the advantages, the there are many things have the nation can have from decolonization, and they can rebuild their own country, their own nation. They can self government. They can have this. They can have their political status and cultural development. That's all for the advantages. Okay, we move for the disadvantages. Okay, the disadvantages is the first conflict and violence. For the conflict and violence, there are different entities that need to work together to become a nation. This is causing the different group of culture fight for land after the departure of colonials. The effect of the massive conflict between group, 100 of civilian or people were killed and thousands were forced to flee to their neighboring countries. Despite us gaining independence or peaceful country, the tragedy happened and the children were killed and women were killed and were raped. Second is independence country faced the economic struggling because the colonial extract all the goods in their nation, and they they claim to develop economy and civilization, but in reality, the colonizer focused on building the infrastructure to get resources and export them, and it will benefit them. Okay, for my research, I have come to the conclusion that decolonization did create much more problem than it solved. Decolonization caused displacement of displacement of millions of people due to the borders being created where there had been none before. They focus on economic gain when creating borders. Rather than paying attention to the cultural compatibility of the people, they were combining in this new country, and it will um, make the country become poorer. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, now I will talk about decolonization on Islamic perspective. First of all, my name is Airi Uzibaidi. With metric number 2011 649. Okay, now decolonization on Islamic perspective is allowed according to several reasons and certain reasons. Okay, now we go to first is to reject the capitalism. Capitalism is a political system to control the economy by private owners for a profit rather than a state. Okay, first we'll see the according to ayat al-Baqarah, surah al-Baqarah, ayat 188, to not devour other people's property in vain, oppressing, sucking, or seizing, and not to and do not bring it to the judge justification through the policy court and in the name of power, so that you may consume the sum of people held with the sin unjustly. Why you know it? Okay. According to another cut of ayah, Surah Al-An'am, ayah 145. Auzubillahi minasyaitonirrajim. Au damam masfauhan. Au damam masfauha, which is means eat following blood. Islam is quite clear against the existence of human being exploiting to other human beings. That is reflected in Al-Quran, the letter of Al-An'am, verse 145, which say is unlawful to eat following blood. Eating following blood is not only eating someone blood or their meat or something like you eating human, but the really thing is the master blackmail his slave, or the landlord blackmail his farm slaves, and also for example the capitalist steal the labor of the worker. The labor will not able to be able squeeze when the blood no longer flow in their bodies. So it means that the mean of a it means that the Islam is against the capitalism in our country or other country lah. Okay, so we see the next reason is creating a social justice. According to the Ayah Al-Mu'minun, verse 52, wa inna hadihi ummatukum wa ummatan wahidatan wa ana rabbukum fattakun. And the meaning is and verily this is our religion. A religion is one principle, and I am your Lord, so I am your God lah, especially. So be careful of your duty to be me. So the creating the social justice is justice in social differences. Is a social with justice is a society in transition to be a society of tawhid. Certain not one ummah when they life other certain not one ummah when while other live in abundance, while millions of people live in poverty. So the one ummah will only exist when everyone gets according their needs, no longer according to their performance works. For example, human nowadays want to buy something their needs, but according to their performance in work. So such as human with less salary of work, so they can't buy any more their needs. Okay, now we go to the last reason is, I'm sorry, wait. Okay, war for decolonization. So decolonization is to reduce the colonization in a certain country. So we see in Surah Al-Hajj verse 39, which means it is permissible to fight for those Muslims who are fought in the invaders because they have been wronged. And verily Allah is able to help them achieve victory. So this ayah show Islam is legalized the war because of a certain reason, especially for decolonization, to against the uh, another country want to take care of our country, so we allowed to war or fight with them. But in Islam, they oppose unjust violence. So the first violence is, for example, the colonization of other country to confiscate their property and wealth. So this is mean such as capitalism. They want to get control the economy of a certain country. And next is for having respect and powerful over the colonized country. So it's mean that on the past years that Malaysia, for example, Malaysia has been taken by the British or Japan to have their respect or power to make their land more bigger and more powerful. That's one of example for the uh, respect for having a respect over the colonization or colonized country. So Islam is opposed to unjust violence. So for the conclusion in this Islamic perspective, Islam is allow the decolonization to us take care by our own land. So not so Islam is against the colonization and capitalism. Okay. Thank you. That's all.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Wan Muhammad Nurushdi Amin bin Rosli with the metric number of 2013449. Okay, for my part is conclusion of decolonization. The decolonization is important in changing the indigenous society from Western center to local value center. Through decolonization, democracy comes with freedom of speech, freedom of choice, human rights, and so on. Factors that led to decolonization after World War II is the dissatisfaction of the colonialism by the colonized natives. It had four challenges of decolonization, which are state building, nation building, settled population, and economic development. The decolonization also has advantages and disadvantages. The advantages is justice restoration, right or self-determination, and so on. The disadvantages are conflict and violences and economic struggling. Decolonization also has effects such as culture, education, economic, and judiciary system. Decolonization is a type of regime change that involves much change and much remaining the same. It is this precarious balance between continuity and discontinuity that makes it a fascinating topic of study for historians. With relative political stability in the final decades of the 20th century, the government and business leaders were able to lead the country into the 21st century with a stable and diverse economy. However, commodity exports remain significant and certain parts of the country face serious environmental issues, largely as a result of natural resource extraction. Despite criticism that its development policies lack ethnic and regional balance, Malaysia had a lot of success in bringing national unity and socio-political stability out of deep regional and ethnic division. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.